To live is to be musical, starting with the blood dancing in your veins. Everything living has a rhythm. Do you feel your music, Micahel Jackson, a dancing legend who shook the world with his charisma, voice, and dancing skills? The very own inventor of the moonwalk, which was first performed during his performance of Billie Jean on the Motown 25 Yesterday, Today, Forever television special in 1983, inspiring millions around the globe to pick up art and pursue dancing and music, showcasing the potential this craft holds. Done the right way, it can take a person to heights they never imagined before. But our rock star did not have it the easy way. Yes, he is considered to be a prodigy in the field of music. Those who believe it might not know the backstory of this pop legend and what circumstances molded him to be the person he was. Unfortunately, we lost him on June 25, 2009, however, his legacy thrives to this day as well. Through this video, let's understand what made Micahel Jackson the star he is. At 27, Jackson Prince finally opens up and confirms the real truth about his dad, Micahel Jackson. 1. A rough childhood. Have you ever been to therapy, or are you someone interested in mental health in general? Well, if you are, there is a common saying that goes in such situations. Most of your issues stem from your childhood. Whatever problems you might be facing as an adult, emotionally and psychologically are a result of some nasty childhood experiences that you had as a kid. While it can be inflicted upon anyone, it mostly comes from the two people closest to you. Mom and dad are your whole soul when you are growing up. Being strict and disciplinary is a different thing, but being rough on your kids and singling out 1 out of 9 just makes the perfect recipe for trauma. But what did America's favorite pop star go through that he considered his childhood to be traumatic? Think we're lying? Then listen to this. These are the words of Micahel Jackson himself, which he let out while accepting the Grammy Legends Award in 1993. My childhood was taken away from me. There was no Christmas, there were no birthdays, it was not a normal childhood, nor the normal pleasures of the childhood. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle and pain, and eventually material and professional success. But as an awful price, I cannot recreate that part of my life. Nor would I change any part of my life. While prodigies are a thing, and Micahel himself was one, it was not all flowers and roses for the musician and stage performer. Let us rewind the clock and take it back to his early years. We will understand his living circumstances and the environment that he was raised in as a child and a young adult. Joseph Joe Jackson settled at the age of 18 in Gary, which was a place 25 miles down from Chicago. There he met his future wife, Catherine Screws. They tied the knot in 1949 and went ahead to have 10 children for over a time span of 16 years. Catherine had an interview with the BC News in 2009 where she expressed her initial feelings about Joe. She said, "I just had a feeling that he would be my husband. The first time I saw him, I fell in love with him. Really, he was so nice. He tries to be tough now." Joe and Catherine's kids were named Rebby, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Latoya, Marlon, Brandon, Michael, Randy, and Janet. Brandon was the twin brother of Marlon, who unfortunately died just after he was born. Unlike any other common set of parents, Joe and Catherine did not prioritize their children's education. However, music was an essential part of their lives. Micahel has admitted multiple times that the environment they were brought up in made it extremely evident that music was the way to go for them. Micahel recalls some of his childhood memories in the earlier days living in Gary. "We were a family that sang all the time. We would take the furniture out of the living room and dance. We would have a songwriting competition while we washed the dishes, while we were cleaning. Music was our destiny." Joe Jackson, the father of 9 children, was a strict man who was determined to instill values of discipline, dedication, and hard work in all of his kids. He was a former boxer who had a substantial amount of knowledge of music and guitar. To support his family, he performed in a local rhythm and blues band, the Falcon, along with working as a crane operator for a U.S. steel company. While Micahel does have fond memories of his father, his overall relationship with him seems to be the core cause of Michael's trauma and feelings of inadequacy. He recalls his dad sitting in a chair with a belt in his hand so that he could discipline his children while they rehearsed. "A few lines from You Are Not Alone, Micahel, Through a Brother's Eyes," written by Jermaine, tells of an instance where the kids felt the lack of activities that were there in other children's lives. Yet another time when they felt far away from a normal childhood. While they lived in their tiny house, they got to witness what was happening in homes around them. "We observed all this from inside a house with no tree, no lights, no nothing. Our tiny house was the only one without decoration. We felt it was the only one in Gary, Indiana, but Mother assured us that no. There were other homes and other Jehovah's Witnesses who did not celebrate Christmas. But that knowledge did nothing to clear our confusion. We could see something that made us feel good, yet we were told it wasn't good for us." If this wasn't enough, Joe demanded that he should be called Joseph. His children recall multiple instances where they called him Dad and he corrected them saying, "I'm Joseph for you." It was in 1963 that the Jackson Brothers was formed, which featured Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine. It was in 1965 that they started entering local competitions, showcasing their musical talents for someone so young. In 1966, Joe felt obliged to add Marlon and Micahel to the band, renaming it the Jackson 5. However, the creation of this band has a twisted story as well. Remember, we told earlier in this video that Joe had a passion for music himself and was well acquainted with guitar. Well, his guitar was the only thing he took as a memoir from his singing days. It was a deeply cherished piece of equipment that was off limits for kids. However, Tito, being his naive self, went ahead and took it out of the cabinet where it was stashed and broke a string. Fearing his father's judgment, he suggested starting a band when his father questioned what could be done with this guitar. On the contrary, we would not even like to contemplate as to what might have happened if Tito had answered otherwise, or if Joe had decided to discipline all of them. Joe often spent long hours with all his kids, especially those who were a part of the band, rehearsing so they didn't mess up on stage. However, at times the discipline might have been taken too far. Michael recalls times when he was so afraid of being caught by his dad that it made him throw up on several accounts. In a 2003 TV interview, Michael recalls an instance, "I just remember hearing my mother scream, 'Joe, you're gonna kill him, you're gonna kill him. Stop it.' I was so fast he couldn't catch me half the time, but when he would catch me, oh my God." It was bad. It was really bad. This gives us an insight that physical beating and violence were not uncommon for the kids. Kids who didn't even reach the teenage stage at the time were being recognized for their musical talents, every kid's dream, right? Unfortunately, not. But how did early success affect Michael Jackson so much? 2. Early success. Michael Jackson is what you would call an overnight sensation, or that is what people would like to believe. But imagine what celebrities go through. Fame and money are just a mere outcome of what you do on stage. However, that does not really provide insights into what goes behind the scenes, and that does not teach you to cope with media who are no less than scavengers, constantly tailing your every move and attributing all sorts of reasons as to what you do and why you do it. As an adult, you might be able to handle yourself in the industry, but what is an 8-year-old supposed to do? Were strict parents not enough of a punishment? That he had to be shoved into the spotlight at such a tender age, where most children can't even carry out basic daily activities by themselves. As per Michael, he grew up in the world of an adult. He never got to witness his childhood, or his normal childhood for once. The strict teaching sessions coupled with early fame and public judgment made it the perfect place for emotional and psychological trauma. In a 2002 Gold magazine interview, Micahel said, "I grew up on stage. I grew up in nightclubs. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I was in nightclubs. I saw striptease girls take off all their clothes. I saw fights broke out. I saw people throw up on each other. I saw adults act like pigs. Being exposed to the public at such a young age made Michael feel as if he was living in a fishbowl. Constantly being scrutinized by the public and watched by them felt like an invasion of privacy and made him self-conscious. Especially about his nose, which he felt was too wide, saying all that there was an upside to all that happened with Michael and his brothers." In 1967, the Jackson 5 won an amateur talent competition at New York's Apollo Theater. Seeing the success, Joe felt right to sign his sons a contract with Motown Contracts, who at the time were associated with renowned figures from the industry. The hard work and tight routine paid off, as Joe's sons would achieve a massive feat in the early 70s by selling over 1 million records of some of their top hits like "I Want You Back," "Never Can Say Goodbye," "I'll Be There," and a BC. 3. Struggles as a teenager. Michael's childhood issues were very persistent throughout his teenage years. The transition from what is normally considered as a child to a teenager was a drastic step for Michael. His childhood struggles continued to impact various attributes of his personality as he advanced to a teenage state. By that time, it was quite evident that music was his life, but the cost he had to pay for it turned out to be more than he bargained for. One of the most profound struggles he came across was regarding his self-esteem, which was mostly related to his appearance and the fear that he might mess up. As he grew up, he became particularly conscious about his skin tone and facial features. His nose being too wide was the most common fear, that he thought the public would notice evidently and point fingers at him. This is what Michael said regarding his appearance as a teenager. "My appearance began to really change when I was about 14. I grew quite a bit in height. People who didn't know me would come into a room expecting to be introduced to cute little Michael Jackson, and they'd walk right past me. I would say, "I'm Michael," and they would look doubtful. Michael was a cute little kid. I was a gangly adolescent heading toward 5 feet 10 inches. I was not the person they expected or even wanted to see. Adolescence is hard enough, but imagine having your own natural insecurities about the changes your body is undergoing heightened by the negative reactions of others. They seemed so surprised that I could change, that my body was undergoing the same natural change everyone's does, but that was not all. His skin was covered with acne, and instead of sweat glands, he had pimples all over his face. This added to an already messed up situation. He considered the mirror to be his enemy. At the age of 14, music or performance was a child's play to him, and it came in very naturally thanks to his dad and the rigorous training as a child. However, he was not confident enough to face anyone, or rather engage in a conversation with any stranger, as he was afraid of being made fun of. It only worsened as he started to go into depression due to all these fears and complexities. Even while talking to someone, making eye contact was next to impossible for him due to his messed up skin complexion. In a 2002 interview with Martin Bashir, Michael recalled a heartbreaking story where a fan directly insulted him to his face. The fan entered a room in expectation of meeting the Jackson 5 and hoping to see cute little Michael. But what he witnessed did not meet his expectations. He was brought close to a disgusting face as if what had happened to Michael. His sister Latoya was an upfront witness to what he went through. She mentions in one of her accounts that his personality changed. Before, he'd been outgoing and comfortable with strangers, now he withdrew into himself. My brother wouldn't talk to outsiders, and if he did, he looked down or to the side, to hide his face. He didn't want his picture taken. During years when he should have been going out meeting girls, he stayed at home. My heart ached for him. "Mike, you shouldn't let this bother you so much," I told him. "It will pass, I can't stand it. Latoya, I really can't." A major shift came by the time he was 16. He realized that most of his problems could be cured through a proper diet. So he went ahead with the plan and incorporated all natural foods into his diet, staying away from foods that might trigger the skin condition, including the pimples and the acne again. While this worked wonders for his skin by the time he was 16, it did not, however, take the effects of what he had been through in the 2 years before that. Being constantly bullied and turning out to be different than what others expected of him broke him to the core. While skin takes the account for a majority of his teenage troubles, there was more where it came from. He often had clashes with his father on the idea of music. Michael grew up to be the family's prodigy, and out of the 5 members of the band, he turned out to be supremely talented as compared to his brothers. While he demanded creative control over the type of music he wished to create, it was often rejected by his father, who had been acting as a strict manager for a long time. His often controlling and abusive behavior, even while Michael was growing up, did nothing to help the situation. 4. Married life. One of the most talked about events in Michael's life was his marriage to Liza Marie Presley in 1994. Their union was the hot topic of media at the time. Michael and Lisa Marie met in the early 1990s, and their friendship progressed rather rapidly, which soon developed into a liking for each other. They soon moved on to be in a romantic relationship with each other, which was marked by its own sets of struggles and things to be coped with. Despite being figures of extreme fame and money in a cutthroat industry like Hollywood, the couple's bond was purely based on love and mutual respect. More than that, Marie expresses that she was a part of Michael's life significantly because of a terrible incident that happened with him. In 1993, he was convicted of child molestation. Marie, on the other hand, also had a different perception of Michael before she met her. But once she got to know her, she felt bad for him, as he was often misjudged by people due to several reasons. Michael always denied the claims when the trial was taken to a civil court. It was later that Michael decided to settle the case for $23 million, out of which $5 million would go to the lawyers. While his only intention was to rest the case and delete it from his life so that it would not interfere with his career, it was perceived in another way. However, over the years, the couple began encountering several problems which created a messy relationship. The goals and priorities did not match. Michael was a superstar who was always surrounded by media and was pretty immersed in his music career. However, Marie, on the other hand, had idealized a more grounded and conventional life. Additionally, Michael's emotional issues rooted deep in his childhood started affecting him physically. He was diagnosed with a skin condition known as vitiligo. This condition, coupled with an already messy skin condition and lack of confidence, prompted Michael to undergo multiple cosmetic and plastic surgeries to change the way he looks. However, changing his looks got him even more attention from the media and public in general, which became a sign of extreme distress for him. It was a matter of time before Michael started to face issues like chronic pain and insomnia that led to an addiction to prescription medicines. Marie tried her best on multiple occasions to reconcile with Michael by focusing more on her and their relationship rather than avoiding them. Also, she wanted him to get a hold of himself as his addiction to painkillers worsened with time. The couple began to drift apart even more with increased differences and a lack of emotional availability on Michael's part. Post his divorce from Lisa Marie Presley, Michael married Debbie Rowe in 1996. Debbie, a nurse who had worked with Michael's dermatologist, played a crucial role in helping him fulfill his desire to become a father. Their marriage, while less publicized than his first, it was primarily focused on starting a family. Debbie gave birth to Michael's first two children, Prince Micahel Jackson Jr., born in 1997, and Paris Michael Catherine Jackson, born in 1998. The couple divorced in 1999, and Michael received full custody of the children. Debbie Rowe later described their marriage as one of convenience, where she stressed the fact that her primary motivation was to help Michael achieve his dream of becoming a father. She spoke highly of Michael's parenting skills. She also mentioned that he was deeply devoted to his children and provided them with a loving and secure home environment. 5. Micahel with his kids. It is safe to say that Michael Jackson has had a rough childhood. Even while growing up, those issues persisted with him like a bad rash or a nasty cough that just wouldn't go. However, this did not stop him from wanting his own kids. Even with Marie, he insisted on starting a family and having kids. However, Marie had her concerns when she noticed his painkiller addiction getting worse by the day and he was not making a constant effort to do something about it. However, thanks to Debbie Rowe, who fulfilled his dreams of having kids, it was in February 1997 that Michael welcomed his first child, Prince Jackson. This is what he said on the birth of his first child: "Words can't describe how I feel. I have been blessed beyond comprehension, and I will work tirelessly at being the best father I can possibly be. I appreciate that my fans are alienated, but I hope that everyone respects the privacy Debbie and I want and need for our son. I grew up in a fishbowl and I will not allow that to happen to my child. Please respect our wishes and give my son his privacy." Michael ensured that they were brought up in a safe and loving environment and strived relentlessly for them to have a normal childhood, something which he was deprived of as a kid himself. Michael was sure that he would not expose his children to the media and public criticism until and unless they were old enough. Taking this measure seriously, he shielded his kids with veils and masks, as in when he was supposed to go out of them or they stepped out of the house. He was well aware of what someone goes through when they are exposed to an unfamiliarly competitive environment at such a young age. Talking about home, Michael was pretty much involved in everything his children did. Their day-to-day activities, including education and much more. His intention to be involved as much as he could was clear right from the start. His three children are Prince 27, Paris 26, and BG, also known as Blanket 21. In 2007, one of Jackson's longtime bodyguards said that the children were well-mannered and well-behaved kids. They were Michael's first priority. Michael was taking them around the world as he himself had to travel a lot. While many thought that he did it for the sake of it, Michael's idea was to expose them to different cultures and let them gain as much exposure as possible. Despite his busy schedule, he took time out for his children. Michael ensured that he instilled values of humility and being grounded in his children as well. He engaged in charity and often taught his kids to help those in need. Michael went ahead and created the Neverland Ranch for his kids. The ranch was located in Santa Barbara, California, where he could retreat with his kids for a while from the eyes of the media and public. He purchased the property in 1988 for an estimated $17 million. He named it Neverland as it was inspired by a fictional place in Peter Pan, a magical land where children never grow up. The estate was equipped with a full-fledged amusement park, cinema, and zoo, which were designed to reflect a child's desires, and everything a child needs is entertainment. Michael often felt loved and protected there, with a sense of normalcy among his children as there were no cameras or media there. While Neverland was a place of joy for many, it also became the center of controversy. The estate was raided by law enforcement in 2003 as part of an investigation into allegations of child molestation against Michael Jackson. This raid was part of a larger legal battle that resulted in a highly publicized trial in 2005. While he was relieved of all charges, the events took a significant toll on him both personally and financially. The raid on Neverland was a deeply traumatic event for Michael, and after his acquittal, he rarely returned to the ranch. The once vibrant and magical estate became a symbol of the pain and suffering he endured during this period of his life. In 2006, Michael stopped living at Neverland altogether, and the estate was eventually closed to the public. 6. Jackson's demise. After creating a legacy, the King of Pop left us on June 25, 2009, when he was 50 years old. It is believed that during the months leading to his death, he was preparing rigorously for a series of comeback concerts titled That's It, which were to begin in July 2009 at O2 Arena in London. While Michael's comeback was anticipated by his fans, He was under significant stress when preparing for the show, mentally as well as physically. Michael had a history of chronic pain and insomnia for which he was taking adequate prescription medicines prescribed to him by Dr. Conrad Murray. On the morning of June 25, 2009, he was found unresponsive in his bedroom. Doctor had spent the night at his home and tried to revive him through CPR. At 12:21, one of Michael's staff contacted 911 informing them of the situation, that he was unresponsive and attempts to revive him rendered useless, despite attempts by the ER of Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. An autopsy confirmed that his death was caused due to acute propofol intoxication. Several other drugs that he was taking at the time for his condition were found in his system, including lorazepam, diazepam, midazolam, lidocaine, and ephedrine. The drugs are generally administered for anxiety, sedation, and pain relief. The cause of death was to be attributed to the inappropriate administration of drugs prescribed by Dr. Conrad Murray. In 2011, he was brought to trial, and earlier he was charged with an offense of manslaughter in 2010, which was just 8 months after Michael's death. After a 6-week trial, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was released in 2013, just after serving for 2 years on account of good behavior. On July 7, 2009, a public memorial service was held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, which was attended by many of his fans. Most of them joined on a live stream to pay their final respects to the one who had a massive impact on the music industry and created a legacy unlike anyone else could. 7. What do Michael's kids think about their dad? After Michael's demise, the children's public appearance was made much more evident. It started with his daughter's unplanned speech at her dad's funeral. "Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine, and I just want to say that I love him so much." Paris at the time was only 11 years old. Prince Jackson, the eldest of the three, has some nice words to say about Daddy as well. He always wanted to get into business, but he wanted to follow his own path and not walk in Dad's footsteps. For the same reason, he went ahead to pursue direction and production rather than being a stage performer. He mentioned in an interview that his dad had been relatively supportive of whatever he wanted to do right from the start. Even as a growing teenager, when his dad asked what he wanted to do, he said production and director, which Michael was completely okay with. Michael referred to Prince as his little man. Since Michael's death, the kids have been there for each other. Prince mentioned in one of the interviews, "At this point in our life, it doesn't really feel like there's that hierarchy of, I'm the older brother. It's more that we're all siblings and we're kind of all on that same level, where my sister has her strengths and my brother has his strengths. And where I'm not as strong in certain areas, they complement me in that way. Additionally, the three of them spend time together whenever they get the chance to do so. They make this effort despite being in different fields of work." Prince said, "Any moment that I get to spend with my siblings now, especially as we're getting older and our own lives are starting to blossom and grow, every moment that I get with them, any little family dinner, any family outing is really a special moment." Michael Jackson's life was filled with complex relationships and turmoils throughout his life, but despite all that, he overcame everything and earned his place as one of the top influential personalities in the world. Also, he was the one who broke the cycle of being brought up in a strict environment. Being soft and loving on his kids healed a part of himself that demanded the same as a kid but didn't receive it. Which of the facts about Michael did you find the most fascinating? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked what you just saw, do not forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to our channel for more such content.